Welcome. This is Rayna Neises, your host of a Season of Caring podcast, where we share stories of hope for family caregivers, breaking through the busyness and loneliness of life to see God even in this season. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Amanda Bailey. Amanda's mother died of Alzheimer's, and it changed her life forever. For the last 18 years, she has poured into senior living industry a passion for helping seniors and their family. She is the founder of the Cognitive Busy Box, a special box designed for those living with dementia to offer an opportunity to have reminiscent therapy as well as multisensory engagement. Amanda has been actively involved in caring for seniors as a director of assisted living and memory care communities. She has firsthand knowledge of how senior living communities operate and shares that knowledge with the families she helps with looking for long-term care. She started her company, Help for My Parents, to assist families searching for long-term care options. Amanda, I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your mom and what caregiving looked like for her.
So my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was 35 years old, a few years ago, kind of when it wasn't mainstream knowledge back then. I really think we were blessed because we live in Houston, which is some of the best medical care in the world. But we had a doctor who put aside his own, what he thought he knew and what he thought he didn't know, and said, you know what, this is outside of my realm. I think you should go down to the medical center and see a doctor at Baylor. And it just so happened she was able to be diagnosed by one of the most world-renowned researchers in Alzheimer's. All that being said, hers was a very fast pace. From the time she was diagnosed until the time she passed away was about 3 years. So it was a really rapid adjustment for our whole family. But I was in a unique position because I was a secondary caregiver. My dad was the primary caregiver. At times the best I could do was support him, gather information to present to him. He was the one making the decision and moving forward on things. And when you're in that position, it's difficult, in some ways, but in other ways, it's a relief. You're not having to make the hard decisions. Do we go on hospice? Do I sign a DNR? Things of that nature. But at the same time, you have to be that person that can gather up everything to present to them so that they can make an informed decision the best you can and really be there for them when they need an ear or a shoulder or just a hug. Because as we all know, it's a very difficult journey. And secondary caregivers is a little different than the primary caregiver. Primary caregiver is so hard. And I think that's what surprised me the most about how hard that journey can be.
I agree. I think because I walked in both places, obviously I was just a teenager when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so even putting myself in a caregiving role or thinking that I was didn't even cross my mind. But definitely over her 12-year journey, just that supporting my dad and knowing how to do that. Once I'd gotten in my 20s, I was a teacher. And so I'd be out of school for the summer and I would go home and be there for a couple of weeks and say, like, Dad, just go do something. Yeah. So that role looks really different, but it is so important because they need our support. And oftentimes they're so busy with the day-to-day that they don't have time to learn about new things or to investigate something, whereas we have a little outside perspective and can kind of bring in something that they don't have time to or the bandwidth to really explore. So
Agreed.
Really, really important roles. And I think that's one of the things that can be really helpful is to start realizing you are in a caregiving role, even when you don't realize you are. And that kind of starts to help bring some of these resources to light, which are so helpful.
Well, and the primary caregiver, has such a burden, but it can be lightened by other people in their lives if everybody will step up to the plate. And I also learned that when I got into a primary role with my own father later in life, that there's a lot of people around who want to help, but they don't know how to help. And sometimes you just have to be bold enough to say, hey, I need help. Yes. One time my husband and I were going to go on a vacation, and I had adult children, college age. And my dad was at our house, and he was okay, but he needed, meals needed to be made, and driving him places needed to happen and things like that. So my adult children said, hey, we'll come in, we'll stay. And I was telling my sister, hey, look, I'm going to be out of the country. If they need anything, they may reach out to you. And she's like, well, do you want me to come and just stay there? And I'm like, oh, that would be huge.
Yeah.
You don't mind? And, no, absolutely, I don't mind. So sometimes you just need to ask. And
I agree.
Because a lot of people don't want to tread on what you need or take a guess at what you might need or not don't need. But if you ask, a lot of people will step up and help.
Most caregivers look like they're doing it pretty well. And so
I know.
But
that's the time for you're standing on your inside. You're like,
exactly. They don't see all that. They just see the part that you're putting forward in public. And so it definitely is helpful to just ask. You never know what they can do. So that's a nugget of wisdom. Do you have a favorite caregiving story you'd like to share about your mom?
I do. So, and it was kind of, I know we'll get into this a little later, it's kind of the birth of the cognitive busy box. My mom had this little wicker basket that was like, had gold trim on it. I don't know where the thing came from, but she had a little stack of pictures that would be in it. And she liked to thumb through those pictures and just look at them and pick them up, and she'd smile at them and things. And they were a variety. They were grandkid pictures. They were pictures from years ago, travel pictures. Sometimes it was a picture of her holding the dog at the Grand Tetons, and things like that. It was a wide variety of, hodgepodge of pictures, but they definitely brought her pleasure. And she was a walker, like to walk around the care home that she lived in. And she'd just carry that little thing, and then she'd sit down for a few minutes and then she'd pick it up and off she'd go again. But I found when I visited that we could sit down and I would talk to her about who was in the picture, and she'd look at me and she'd smile. And there was in my opinion, there was a form of recognition there. And it certainly brought her comfort and pleasure for me to just interact with her and engage with her. This was long before I worked in senior living. I didn't know what I was doing. It was called reminiscent therapy, but that's what it was. It was reminiscent therapy. And we enjoyed those moments together. She had so many things that would go on, and things would get flipped around in her brain. When my dad would walk through the door, she'd go, oh, there's my band husband. The husband.
Yeah.
But that brought such great pleasure to my dad because she knows who I am. She flips a bird, but she knows who I am. And that was so comforting to him at times. So there were things that went on that she definitely, you could tell she enjoyed it. And those were happy moments that I hung on to.
And I think it's so important. We had coffee table books. My dad had played for the Brooklyn Dodgers when he was young. And so we found books of baseball that were older like that, and Mickey Mantle, all that kind of thing. And we just sat for hours and looked at the books and talked about whether it be somebody in the stand or other things. So I love that you found that connection with her. I found that it's something that it's not the past or the future, or it's the moment. And being able to talk about what you're both looking at right now made such a big difference. Sounds like that was true with your mom too. I think staying in the moment, and that can be tricky because our natural instinct is in our mind, we connect things to the past and we do that automatically. And so sometimes your mouth runs away with. But I love that you can find times to just really, this is something we're looking at together and stay in that moment. So,
yeah. And still here we are 21 years later, and it's still memorable to me.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So what's one thing that surprised you most about caregiving?
How hard it is, how emotionally, physically, mentally draining it can be. Because you want to be everything to everyone. And this caregiving role pulls so much from you. And so often we have people who are what we term sandwich generation caregivers. They're still raising their kids, but they've got their elderly parents that they have to look after. And that tugs in both directions. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. It tugs both directions. If you're not careful, it can overtake you. So you have to find my balance that I found was my quiet time that I did with God. Even if I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to do it, I found time to do that because it was my balance, and it was what it's what worked for me. And it definitely strengthened my relationship with God. I wasn't always real happy with God at times. I kind of screamed why a few times, but now here I am able to give back what he put on my heart. And the only thing I would change is having my parents still here. Is that realistic that I'm going to make, I'm going to get to be 70, 80 years old and my parents are going to still be here? I mean, some people do, but you have to kind of take the life circle as it comes. That's a hard journey, and you don't quite realize how hard it is.
I think that's a blessing in that we just don't realize. Oftentimes, back to caregivers, they think, oh, it's terrible now. And I just think, oh, you don't know what's coming. But I mean, that doesn't help them. So it's okay that they don't know. Right?
No, good. It's definitely a good thing.
But it's so important that we are there to walk them all the way home. And God is there with us.
You won't regret it. You won't regret it. It's hard. And in the moment, you might be sad and angry and upset and be grieving. But at the end of the day, when time passes and you get that hindsight to look back at it, you won't regret you did it.
Definitely.
I mean,
and they're gone one way or another, whether you were there or not. And so I think it's not near as hard when you know that you've done all that you could. So thank you for joining me today with Stories of Hope with Amanda. I'm glad that you've joined us. Today's episode has been brought to you by No Regrets, Hope Your Caregiving Season. It's my story of caring for my parents during their journeys with Alzheimer's disease. It's filled with heartwarming stories, practical tips and tools I use to bury them with no regrets. No Regrets, Hope Your Caregiving Season is available. No Regrets, Hope Your Caregiving Season is available everywhere you buy books. I do have special signed editions as well as bundles available at my website, aseasonofcaring.com. It's a great gift for you or anyone you love who's in a caregiving season. Now let's get back to my conversation with Amanda. Is there a specific situation that comes to mind when God really showed up for you and you remember just that, oh, this is definitely him right here?
Yeah. So what am I screaming, fit at God? I'm driving home and tears just coming down the week my mom was passing. And me yelling, why? A lot of people never get to understand why. They may understand it when they get to heaven and the realization of what your life meant and how it played out was a journey, and it was a journey for a reason. But I feel that God really put this on my heart so I could help other families. I was sitting in church. My church used to do in every month in July, it was the church has left the building. So the idea was to go out into the community and serve your community. And this was in May or June. We were talking about the upcoming month of July and deciding what were going to be our giving stones and what were we going to do for our community. And I remember sitting there and it almost felt like a waft over me of realization that, I had started the Alzheimer's memory walk in my town, and I was moving in a direction that I didn't know what direction I was moving, but I was moving. And the realization of, oh, you want me to work with people with dementia. You want me to work with their families, don't you? And I mean, I just sat there and just tears just streaming down my face. Overwhelming feeling of, oh, I get it. I still don't know what you want me to do, but I get it. And I about 8 months later, I stepped into senior living. It was one of those things where something opened up and I stepped up and I said, hey, I'd like to do this. And somebody took a chance on me and I've been here ever since. So
it's so neat how he uses all the things, because I don't know about you, but I look back at all the different things that I've done in my life and they really have all helped equip me to be able to support
where you are
people.
today. I know. It's amazing launching my company, helping my parents, where I help families find long-term care solutions in the Houston, Dallas area. But also the Cognitive Busy Box goes all the way back to those pictures that I spent time with my mom with. And when you think about how that all kind of ties together, quite remarkable.
Only God, which is so cool.
And he had the plan the whole time.
Yes. Yes. And if he had told you when you were young where you were going to end up, you'd be like, no way, I'm not writing a book.
I'm not doing it. Crazy.
I love that. So what would be one thing that helps you to live content, love well, and care without regrets?
Oh, wow. My family, my friend, my dog, and certainly the caregiving journey that I went on. I mean, live without regret. I mean, yeah, we all have some regrets, right? But if moving past that and just going, okay, well, I'm going to make today better than yesterday was, and just keep building on that. I mean, I can't ask for anything better. I mean, my husband and I work together in our company, which is wonderful. I always thought there's no way I could work with my husband. That would kill me. We're having so much fun. We enjoy doing it. And our relationship's even stronger than it ever was. 37 years of marriage last week. And we're just...
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. And it's wonderful.
I think we have to be really appreciative of the support we have around us, no matter what season we're in. But who we have with us definitely makes a difference on our faith and just how we walk our lives. So it's a blessing to have.
When my mom passed away, my dad needed to be around family. And I looked to my husband and said, can Dad move in with us? And he was like, absolutely. I mean, there wasn't even a hesitation. There was no, and he and my dad, we had a very strong relationship. And my husband lost his own dad at 17. So my dad was a huge figure in his life. And neither one of us regret any of those decisions because, he raised our family. I mean, if I was busy at work and John was busy at work, he would run the kids to the activity and he would, go to the ball games and do all the things. And he, he'd mow the grass. He was an active part of our home. And I'm so thankful that I have a husband that embraced it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So share with us a little bit more about the cognitive busy box and what all's in there.
Oh my goodness. I love, this is my like my heart project, right? So I always used to laugh that when I stopped being an executive director in memory care facilities, I would become an activities director because I just enjoyed doing activities with the residents. That was always my theme. When I ran a building, I instilled, okay, everybody in management has to spend one day, or at least take one activity per month and do it with the resident. It doesn't have to be every resident, but pick an activity that you can do with a bunch of the residents, whether you are the maintenance manager or you are the kitchen manager or you're the nurse in the building, whatever it was, just make I had a group of ladies that we made wreaths for the building. So they would make wreaths for their doors and I'd make the wreath for the front door of the month. And sometimes it was patriotic. Sometimes it was Christmas. Sometimes it was winter, whatever the theme may be. But we did it once a month and we had a blast doing. As I thought back and talked to families, one of the overwhelming themes that I would hear from families is how guilty they felt not engaging mom or just putting dad in front of the TV where they felt like they were bored and they felt like they needed to do something to engage their minds in some way. Who knows if it helped or not, but it doesn't hurt sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I created a multi-sensory engagement tool. So it's a box. So it's pretty simple. It's just a little box like this. And there's a picture of it right up there and all the things that are on the inside. So it comes with instruction for each item. So it will tell you what the purpose of the item is and tips on how to present it and work with the person with dementia. And then each item has its own purpose. So for instance, these are like little multi-sensory hand squishy things, but they're also good for strengthening. So little occupational therapy type options, but some are hard and sparkly, some are shiny, some and soft, some have texture to them. And now it varies a little bit from box to box. And that's kind of the unique part about it. They can vary a little bit. There's deep texture type things. This is a deep texture strip. They call them calming strips. And been proven that these deep textures, when you rub your fingers across it, actually cause a reduction in anxiety in people with autism and ADHD. It's a sticker, so you can stick it on the box or you can just leave it without it being on there. There's a wide variety in here, but one of my favorite things is the postcard. So the postcard are very recognizable national monument type of thing. So like this is the Seattle fake needle. And you can sit and kind of go through and say, this is the Seattle Space Needle. And on the back of each card tells you what it is in case you were right. And I had one gentleman, we were doing field tests. I was going through these cards and we were talking about the different pictures and the White House was in there and things like that. And I got to a picture of now, when they brought him to me, they said, look, all he says is yes or no. And that's what he was doing. It's like, oh, this is so pretty. This is the White House. You see the pretty flowers in front of it. And he said, yes. So he was giving me his yeses and nos. And when we got to the Golden Gate Bridge, he immediately popped off with, that's the Golden Gate Bridge. And I was like, yeah. And I said, I've never been there before. And he said, oh, I've been there. And just astounding. And I was like, I've so wished for his family to be there to hear that. If he's just a yes or no person and that moment was right there. He knew exactly what that was. That was huge. And the memory care director was like, in my eyesight, but not in his eyesight. And she was like, and when he left, she goes, I've never heard him say more than yes or no. And he's lived here. And so that was huge to me. And the reminiscent therapy of these type of things is so amazing. One of my favorite things, little lava lamp. I like to talk about the lava lamp that I had when I was a kid. It was pink and purple, and pink was my favorite color. And ask them questions like, what's your favorite color? And just kind of engage in a way that's fun. I had one lady I had gone into a care home. And when I got there, they had one of those little boards that had the little locks and ties all over it. And they were all sitting around kind of there were two ladies and a caregiver sitting at a table messing with it. And I came in and I started kind of doing my field research. This was part of our field research that we did this with. And one of the ladies, like after we had gone through several things in the box, 9 different things in the box. It's all really cool variety of things. And he said, well, I like that. You're saying better than this thing. I was like, oh, vote you on that?
Yeah. But that's great.
Yeah. It's definitely my heart project. And I feel like it's back to what we were talking about. I feel like it's a big wraparound to everything I've ever done from the time I was 35 when my mom was diagnosed to today, which we won't discuss the age today. But it's been a minute. So, yeah.
Well, tell the audience how they can find out more and get their own book.
So our website, thecognitivebusybot.com, you can purchase on there. There's also a link if you prefer to purchase it off of Amazon. There's a link where you can go to Amazon and purchase it that way. You can reach out. My email is on there. You can reach out to me directly. I would love to be able to visit with anybody if they had any questions about it, or even if you had questions about care that, obviously I'm not a doctor, I'm not a social worker, but I've been around been in their shoes, and I've been on the side of running facilities for a while now. And I try to at least be an ear and offer resources that I bump into, in this industry, because 9 times out of 10, that's what people need. They just need resources.
Yeah.
Or things that they're bumping into and they just don't know what direction to go.
Yeah. They've never been there before. And that's what part of the benefit of us sharing is we have been, not necessarily with your loved one, but we have been in a similar situation. So we have different resources. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being here today. We really appreciate you sharing just a little bit about your mom and your journey, and then just kind of where it's led you to.
Well, I appreciate the time, and thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, listeners, for Stories of Hope with Amanda. Just a reminder, a Season of Caring podcast has been created to share stories of hope, living content, loving well, and caring without regrets. If you have financial, legal, or medical questions, be sure to consult your local professionals and take heart in your season of caring.